Alright, so the microphone's hooked up.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's good. We're on.
Beer's still good.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Beer Frame. I'm here once again with my buddy Anthony Lockwood, and as we always do on the Beer Frames, we're going to talk about some beer first. Well, hang on. I need to tell him about the... I'll tell him about what the
topic
is about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another Beer Frame. Got my buddy here, Anthony Lockwood, again, that's going to be helping me talk about some stuff. And this episode is going to be... I've got this loosely titled, So You Want to Work in a Pro Shop, Do You? But as is tradition with the Beer Frames, we're going to talk a little beer first. And I'm going to hand this over to him because this is kind of his thing.
Well, today I chose Hopt Nosh IPA. Luke and I both are large IPA fans. This has kind of a cool story to me. Went to a Colorado Rockies baseball game. They happened to have a beer festival upstairs, and we decided to go ahead and participate, walk around, sample beers all day, and at the end you vote on your favorite beer. And tried a couple different versions of this, can, bottle. Only beer I ever tasted that was just as good in a bottle as it was in a can. So my coin went into that cup, and the brewers at that point, brought it up to us that it finally made it to the KC Topeka area. So started finding it, started buying it right away. And one of my favorites to sit around and drink as far as an IPA, because it's not so filling that you can have one or two. You can drink it pretty close to most lagers. So I like it quite a bit.
Yeah, I haven't traditionally been the biggest IPA fan until here recently. I think it's one of those things like an IPA is just like a stout. A lot of people don't like stouts because they have bad stouts, and a lot of people don't like IPAs because they have bad IPAs. But as soon as you get, if you get a good stout, if you get a good IPA, IPA's got that really hoppy kind of sharp taste to it, and it can get if you get a bad one, it can just really hit you, just punch you in the throat on the way down. But this one's still got that hoppy taste and flavor without that kind of that burn or that sting that kind of hits you on some of the.
And these weren't in the fridge when we pulled them out. These were, straight out of the liquor store, straight into, a 15-minute drive up here. So they're not typical beer cold. They're not quite room temperature, but they're still fantastic. So
yeah, and this is my first time trying this one, and I like it. So
sweet. What do you got for us today?
All right. So this is another thing like the last episode that we had on being a staffer. Everybody wants to be a staffer, and everybody wants to work in a pro shop. Those two things kind of go hand in hand, so I figured we'd talk about it as a natural segue right from the last episode into this one. So, first of all, we're going to talk a little business here, because nobody works in a pro shop to get rich. I think we hit on that in the Beer Frame, made a mention about that. Most people who work in pro shops, it's a labor of love. They either do it because they're passionate about it, or it's a big hobby of theirs. But most of the time, the vast majority of people who work pro shops don't do it as a full-time position.
Yeah, not unless they have a few of them and they're kind of, they've got people working for them and have other options. But it takes more than one pro shop to make a legitimate living, I would say, at the pro shop industry.
Yeah, I think I was talking to somebody the other day there's general numbers too. Like if you're an owner-operator and you're in a fairly decent market, there's a good chance that you can probably make money with it. Now, once you get into the two or three, you can still run one of them, and you can pay a couple other people to run the other ones. But generally speaking, whenever you hire somebody to run a pro shop for you, pretty well all of your profits are going to go into just paying that person to run the shop for you. So it's kind of a wash. But once you get into that kind of 5 to 10 range, that's when it becomes a little bit too tough to run one yourself and then try to handle all the business and all the organization and everything else for the other shops. And run one at the same time. But if you were to operate, own like 10 or 20 of them, that's when you can be able to pay people because you've got it's a volume thing, not so much of just a flat revenue type deal.
Right. And you're always going to have a shop or two that's not as successful. I mean, you've already got your prime market, you're going to kind of fill in the gaps. So you got to hope that your great shops are doing great things and your good shops have good months and, eventually a great month or a great day just to make it by.
As long as they're keeping it together, that'll help out. But.
Right.
So, only on, this goes kind of with what we're talking about, only on rare occasions does it pay the bills. Especially because pro shops, most people treat pro shops like a used car lot. They always want a deal, they always want a handout. They're always thinking that whatever the price is on the wall, there's a lot of people that don't even look at the price on the wall. They just come in and say, okay, well, what's my price on it? And the interesting thing about the prices on the wall is that the prices in a pro shop are nowhere near retail cost for stuff. I mean, you might as well be walking into Kohl's or something like that, or one of these big clothing stores that always have the retail price on there and then your sale price. But say for something like a Sherlock or a Scandal or something like that, the top price ball, that depending on where you walk into, you're going to pay anywhere between $220, $240, $250 drilled out the door for. The retail on those balls at that level is actually $299.95. So a retail price is kind of what they establish to make sure that you have the type of margin. They consider it like a fair margin for what you pay, what the business pays versus what they charge for it, to be able to actually stay in business and make a living doing it and make some money doing it. So most bowling balls, or pretty well all bowling balls you're going to find, any type of merchandise. I mean, it's more the bowling balls and the bowling bags.
Oh yeah.
That the accessories and all that stuff you sell for retail, and that's not too bad of a deal. But the bowling balls especially, I mean, the sales that really drive the, make or break a pro shop.
Oh yeah. Are
sold for nowhere near retail, so you're already getting a huge discount to begin with. But then, it's still one of them things. It's still expensive. I mean, it's not like we're trying to say that stuff's already getting sold too cheap. I mean, but you look at it from a pro shop point of view, and it feels too cheap to us. But then we look at it, and it's like, well, that's still $220. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I've worked in a lot of pro shops, kind of all over this area. So I'd never really looked at margins or costs. I always sold for the sticker because I was a part-time guy, and it wasn't my job to negotiate. I sold what it was, what it was for. And the first time I looked at a distributor catalog and I saw $419 or something as MSRP on a top-tier ball.
Yeah.
I just thought it was insane. I never would have expected to see that number.
Oh yeah, it blows your mind because you're so used to walking in and seeing the same prices, and then you see the actual catalog and stuff that says, "Oh, this is a retail price of this," and it just doesn't make any sense. But once you get into once you become a manager of a shop and you actually see the numbers day to day and know kind of what you got to hit, that's when it kind of changes a little bit.
Yeah, everything comes down to the bottom line, and there's not much difference on the top line and the bottom line.
Yeah,
there just isn't. There's not enough room to mark up. Bowling is not the cheapest sport to involve yourself in. But it's, less expensive than buying a set of golf clubs or even a driver.
Yeah.
I went looking for a driver not too long ago, and I literally saw a $5.99 sticker.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can buy a lot of bowling balls for that.
Yeah.
I don't need to be that good at golf.
Well, it's kind of funny too that people go drop $300 or $400 on a driver and won't think about it, but there's people that do that with bowling balls too. I mean, they want a ball and they just come in and they spend whatever it costs, and that's kind of just that. But the big thing for me is that pro shops operate on margins that close every other kind of retail business every day of the week. It's like when you get on, we watch a lot of Bar Rescue.
Bar Rescue, it's exactly what I was just thinking.
Yeah, and you get on that and he asks you what their food costs are, and they say if they say 35 or 36%, he's like, well, you're losing money. And pro shop margins are even higher than that. And basically, a margin is basically what your food cost is. Okay, it's 35%, meaning that whatever you're selling the food for, 35% of it is your cost, and then the other 65% is actual profit. And that sounds like a lot, but when you're talking about employee wages and overhead and lights and electricity and all the other stuff that goes into owning a business, there's a lot of money that goes a lot of places that you just wouldn't think that it would go.
Oh yeah. Yeah, turn the air conditioners on or off. You're spending money, and at 35%, you're not thinking about anything but the material at that point, whatever it is that you're looking at. And 35% doesn't keep the lights on.
Yeah, and that's just the cost of the product. Like
Right.
I said, it's not. So whatever the margin is for a pro shop, that's just talking the cost of the ball. That doesn't include all the other costs that goes into it. So your profit in that case is not really profit.
Exactly.
So moving right along here, everybody wants to be in a pro shop, but that's kind of the same deal as being a staffer. It requires a really huge time commitment to do it right, because once you become a pro shop guy, you're the pro shop guy. And it doesn't begin when the lights turn on, and it doesn't end when the lights turn off. If you're bowling league, people see you in there, they want to come talk to you and ask you about stuff.
Yeah.
If you're practicing, everybody wants to come up, well, what you throwing and whatever else, and then you don't end up getting any practice done.
Right. Can you buzz this out for me real quick?
Yeah.
Can you sell me a piece of tape?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that, every time it leaked, just about.
And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because rarely do people respect your time, but at the same time, it's, that's what you're getting yourself into, and you kind of like that people, you want people to feel like they can come up and talk to you, that you want always to take as good a care of people as you can. But again, it's a 24/7 type operation. It's getting text messages at midnight and all kinds of good stuff like that.
Yeah, your wife wasn't too happy about some of them.
No. Don't you answer that. I wasn't planning on it. I'll get to it tomorrow.
Tomorrow will be all right.
Tomorrow will be fine.
I can remember that situation. You and I walked down to bowl red, white, and blue at Lawrence, and we just had a terrible lunch encounter for the second year in a row, and we're both angry. And I thought my bowling balls got stolen, but I had a friend actually move them down for me, and we walk out, and the very first thing I heard, and I mean the very first thing, was, "Hey, I got something to talk to you about as far as bowling balls goes. As soon as you're done."
Yeah.
I didn't even get my shoes on yet.
Yeah.
So,
we're in the middle of bowling a tournament.
Yeah,
too,
tournament. And not even at my center.
Yeah.
At another center. So, It does happen. It happens a whole bunch.
Back to the business part a little bit, too. Got a note here that says, don't go cheap. There will always be someone cheaper. It doesn't matter what kind of thing you operate on in a pro shop. Somebody's always going to do it for cheaper. So basically what you have to do is you want to focus on quality, and then whatever it costs to keep your quality where it needs to be, that's where you need to be. It's just got to, because every time somebody does something for cheap, I can think of a bunch of hack jobs, or a bunch of, I don't know what the term is.
No, hack jobs works.
Well, hack job
works.
But most of the time you get what you pay for. And I don't know how many times where I've had somebody come into me and say, well, I went over here because they always give me good deals.
Right.
And then, well, they got this wrong, and so can you fix this and can you fix that? And at the end of the day, they end up spending more money doing it cheaper than if they'd have just paid to get it done right the first time. So don't ever sacrifice quality for price, because there will always be somebody cheaper. Always. Somebody will always undercut you. Somebody will always be cheaper. It's just a normal thing of business.
A bowling friend of ours, the only thing that comes to my mind when you bring that up, and I can see it in my head a million times, is right hand extra large.
Yeah.
The old right hand extra large. Don't let Kmart do it, or Dick's, or anybody like that. If they ask you if it's right hand extra large, you don't want it.
That is a pretty good. I mean, we got a list of bowling stories that we're going to tell later, and that was a pretty good one.
It was.
His family bought him a bowling ball, and they just had the company online do it. Put him a regular kind of house ball type drilling on there. It's just right hand extra large, and so he gets an Ebonite Maverick.
When they first released,
with a conventional house ball drill on it. So that was why we fixed that right up. But that was
a good one.
Another one of my big things here when it comes to the business side, value has nothing to do with price. Doesn't make any sense, but value has nothing to do with price. It has everything to do with quality. If you can get something for cheap, and it can either be a good value or it can be a bad value. You can pay a crap load of money for something, and it can either be a good value or a bad value. But it really hinges more on quality than it does on price.
Yeah. Go to, kind of like you were talking about a second ago, go to a different pro shop and have it done, and it's not right, but you paid $20 for it instead of $100 in this scenario. You think because you got it for a fifth of the price, you got a great deal, or the value was high, but now you're going to spend $50 for somebody to do some new surgery to it to make it right.
Yeah. So I mean, if you spend $20 on something and it sucks and it's not what you wanted because you didn't want to pay $30 for what you did want, did you save $10 or did you waste $20? I mean, so do it as good as you can and charge what you have to charge. This also kind of, I've got another note on here that it kind of determines the type of customers you're going to have, and I've got a whole other thing written up on kind of a pro shop rules of conduct, or a lot bigger deal than we're going to go over here, but it also kind of determines the kind of customers you're going to get. If you run a Walmart operation, you're going to get Walmart customers, and there's plenty of websites on there on the internet, so if you want to go check it out, that are dedicated to Walmart customers.
And I'm not going to stand up for Walmart here, but imagine you're a Walmart customer. You got 1,000 people in your store, and you're the only one. I don't know a person out there not complaining about 3 or 4 lanes being open at a Walmart, but that's what it is. They're maximizing what they consider value. It's a lower price in most cases. It's convenient, so people go there for that, knowing what they're about to get into.
Yeah.
So are you really getting value, or are you just kind of leading yourself astray because it's less money out of your pocket initially?
Yeah. It's a lower price, but you're paying more than you think for it. It's just not in dollars. So along with this comes with the whole value thing, the 2 big priorities, the 2 absolute must priorities in a the 2 absolute must in a pro shop is you have to have good quality and you have to have good customer service, because whenever I hear somebody comes in and they say, well, so-and-so referred me to you. They don't ever tell you, oh, go to In the Zone Pro Shop at Westridge Lanes. It's always, go see Anthony at the Pro Shop, or go see Luke at the Pro Shop, or something. The Pro Shop is not the name on the sign. It's you. I mean, you're the guy, and everybody wants to be friends with the Pro Shop guy. Everybody wants to say that they know the Pro Shop guy, and everybody wants to be in good with the Pro Shop guy. So, I mean, you are the business. If you succeed, it succeeds. If you're a donkey,
the beer getting to you already?
I'm cycling through my vocabulary here. There might be kids watching, so
right.
I mean, if you're a donkey, then nobody's going to want to come to see you. There's, and I don't have my other thing up, but there's really 3 legs that things operate on. It's price, and it's service, and it's something else. But rarely do you ever hear somebody say, well, I go to this guy because he's cheap and because he's friendly, but he doesn't do that great of a job. You're never going to hear somebody go, well, this guy's cheap, but he's also an ass. But he does it wrong too. I mean, you're never gonna hear that. So there's always 2 of the 3. It's either somebody does it well, and they, it costs, but they do it well, and they're really nice, I really like them, or they're really cheap and they're really nice. The common denominator in that is always the pro shop operator. It's always the operator. That will determine whether or not you have customers or whether you don't have customers.
Big deal with overpromise and underdeliver. You can't be that guy. There's so many things in a pro shop that, I even found myself immediately when I took over it In the Zone. Hey, I can drill a ball in 15 minutes. In most cases, I can match it pretty well in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But when I say that, it seems that there's always somebody that comes in and wants to ask a bunch of questions about a ball, and that 15 minutes all of a sudden is swarmed up into what we got. And that's something that could have potentially hurt me if I didn't catch it pretty quick. That, hey, yeah, it could take me a little bit, but I'll get started on it here right now.
Yeah.
Limiting what you promise.
Yeah. I've got several little sayings when it comes to pro shop business, and one of the things is under promise and over deliver, meaning that you always want to do better than what you say. But the thing for me with that statement is that a lot of the time people will under promise something just to give themselves extra time, or to give them screw off time, or to give them, sometimes things go wrong and you always need a little bit of extra time. It's a good idea to just give yourself a little bit of extra time in case something does go wrong. But at the same time, people aren't wanting you to deliver on your promise. A lot of the time they're wanting you to deliver to their expectations.
Yep.
And so a lot of the time it doesn't have anything to do with your promise, it has to do with their expectations. And so I never worried about the under-promising thing. I always just figured out what they wanted and tried to over-deliver on that. So that's another one of my little sayings that that has
that works in every business everywhere.
Yeah.
Not necessarily pro shop, but every business everywhere.
Yeah. If you can impress somebody.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time people just kind of go into something expecting bad service. They go in just expecting to walk in, you're going to consider them as a number, and they're going to get bad service and whatever else. And if you can impress them, happy people talk.
I think we touched on that last video. Same thing. That's a way of life. If you can, first impressions are all you get, and if it's a bad one, they'll tell 10 people, and then those 10 people are going to tell 10 people, and all of a sudden you've got 100 or 1,000 people that aren't going to come to you. You do one good thing or step up one time or over deliver one time.
Yeah.
They may only tell 2 or 3, but all of a sudden you have a gain of 2 or 3 instead of a loss of 100. So
happy customers are the best advertisement that you'll ever have, because they'll believe somebody else. They're obviously coming from a business. Again, it's going back to the staffer thing. Well, of course you've got to talk it up. Well, you're the pro shop guy, so obviously you're going to say you're great. But if you can get somebody else to say it for you, then that's the best advertisement you're going to have. So know your stuff, do the job right, and another one of my sayings is make the customer's interests your interest, meaning that there's a wide variety of people that come in there. Not everybody wants to be a superstar. Not everybody wants to be a pro bowler. Sometimes they just want to buy a ball and they want you to drill one finger hole in it because all they use is their middle finger.
Yeah, that's a weird layout.
That's what they want, and that's what makes them happy, and that's your job, is making customers happy.
Absolutely true.
All right. So we're going to go on to how you got started working in a pro shop. I think I've been doing most of the rambling here, so I'll let you take this one first.
Well, I've been in bowling pretty much my entire life. Mom and Dad both bowled, so I got introduced pretty quick. As soon as I turned 16, the first application I ever put in was at a bowling alley. It was the summertime, and at the time, to me, it didn't make a difference. I was just upset I didn't get hired right away, and so I went to another job. Next thing you know, I got a call as soon as August hit. Hey, we need a bunch of help. Love to have you. Sweet. And right away, the first thing I wanted to do after working in front counter pro shop or at a bowling center was be in the pro shop. And I bowled my whole life. Bowled through high school. Never understood a thing about it. The old stories, pin up, pin down, didn't really care. As long as I had a bowling ball and the newest thing out, I was just as good as everybody else. And I was taken under the wing by a fellow named Matt McFadden out of the Wichita area. He brought me into his pro shop. He was working for Billy Murphy with Wichita Bowling Supply. Brought me in, taught me the ropes, got me started. A lot of dumping the resurfaced water and a lot of spinner work, but ultimately got to drilling my own stuff. And from that point forward, and I'm sure almost every pro shop operator will agree, I got so picky about my feel that nobody else touched my stuff really after that. Matter of fact, you were the only one in 10 years probably that ever put holes in a bowling ball that was mine that I didn't look at first. So
that's one of the really unique things is once you start drilling your own stuff, there is something to be said about going to the same person, because there's always, everybody's hands just a little bit different, and more importantly, everybody's version of comfortable is different. And so there's always those little extra things, like some guys don't like a whole lot of bevel, some like a little bit more. Sometimes you got to buzz the finger holes out just a little bit after you drill them before you put the grips in to make them fit just right. And so there's always these extra little personalizing things that you do to a ball. It's not just putting some holes in it and buzzing the edge off and
things you can't write on a spec sheet.
Yeah,
those are
absolutely
tons of those. But that's how I got started, and that was I worked at a number of his pro shops, and then kind of a funny story. I went to Springfield, Bowl Greater Ozarks one year, bought a ball, just came out, and I bowled in the team house. And if you've ever bowled Greater Ozarks, you know that the team house just doesn't hook sometimes. And this was old school before they did the lane replacement.
Yeah.
So I decided to drill a Pursuit S, big ASIM piece, and was like, I'm gonna go into the doubles and singles house, and I'm gonna mop it up. And I went in there, and the younger kid was in there, and I looked at him and I said, you're not going to get it right. So if you want me to buy a ball, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And it's kind of like walking into a place, act like you own it. But, you know, not that he couldn't do it, and more than likely he probably could. But my picture, it wasn't going to work out. I knew exactly how I liked to bevel. I knew exactly what side of the thumb I liked worked on, all that kind of thing that, you know, it just wasn't going to feel right. I was never going to like it.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I've got a point, talk about that later, but most of the time, pro shops will try to compete on price instead of quality. Mm-hmm. And it really should be the other way around, because you can always find somebody cheaper, but you can rarely find somebody better. And quality's worth the extra couple bucks, and in my book, and especially if you worked in a pro shop, it's really hard to trust other pro shop operators because of how much fix-it work we do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, as far as my story getting started in a pro shop, basically what it amounted to is I was in there all the time. Like, I wouldn't leave this guy alone. I was just in there all the time. I didn't ask for a job. I didn't ever drop any hints or anything like that. Eric Topham was the guy that gave me my first job at very same place that I still work at and he works at now. And it was basically, I was in there, I had to have been in there probably 5 days out of the week. And I was buying something probably every week, and you know, he had another job. He was working for the state and doing the pro shop thing, and he needed some help. And he said, "You know what? You're in here all the time. Do you want a job?" And I said yes. And then I just stuck it out. And I worked part time for him. I worked a little full time for him once I got in there, and he trusted me. And then Jesse James bought it, I think, about 10 years ago now, and was part-timer for Brian Zachary in there. I was his Saturday guy for a little while, and then the Thursday guy for a little while, and I just was there long enough. And when Brian moved on to bigger and better things, I took over the shop in there, and then again, I got an offer I couldn't refuse here a few months ago, and so now he's in there, and there's not a whole lot to tell. Been in there for a long time, either part-time or full-time, but that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. And I think that's one thing that, one thing is if you spend a lot of time in a pro shop, there might be that opportunity that you, especially if they see it takes a certain kind of personality.
Oh yeah.
It takes a certain personality, especially if you're likable and everybody knows you and everybody likes you. It's easy to teach somebody. That's the easy part, is teaching somebody how to actually drill a bowling ball or operate a spinner. All that stuff is very easy to do, but it's the other stuff that you can't teach is what's the most important.
Yep. And I was just thinking my story is kind of similar with being at In the Zone Pro Shop right now. I remember walking in and seeing you the first time and trying to word how I was going to tell you that I've done this before and you're probably going to mess it up.
Yeah.
You know? And
it's that kind of touch and go. Like,
I remember walking in and I was like, hey, I've got my own slug. I want this ball. I already know what I want to do with it. I'll give you the layout. I've done this. And then all of a sudden I was in the pro shop days in and days out. And
once I took the Lane 1 sticker off the window.
Once we took the Lane 1 sticker off. Yeah, I couldn't have that up there. But then I was in there a whole bunch of days, and it just worked out that you needed somebody, and the business plan at the time looked like Sundays could work. And next thing you know, I'm drilling balls at In the Zone Pro Shop. And I had to make some life changes to make this full-time operation work. But again, it kind of goes back to that original point of
Yep.
it doesn't necessarily pay the bills, so you've got to kind of make some changes if you really want to do it. And I loved that pro shop and what we did, so I took it.
Yep.
You know, I didn't want to let somebody come in that wasn't as good or wasn't going to put the time in that we did.
Yeah, when I felt the same way too. I didn't want to leave and leave it to somebody that was, you know, I didn't trust, or I didn't want to leave with my customers, because I mean that's the other thing is when you walk out too. Like I still walk back in there and I feel like it's my shop and they're my customers when they're not. But I think it's kind of cool to be able to say that they're kind of like our customers.
Right. You should see it. He walks in and he'll pick up trash off the floor and, you know, a little piece of ball dust or something off the floor like he's still in there.
Yeah.
I'm not quite as finicky about ball dust on the floor as he was.
Well, I wasn't when I was in there either. It's just
I do operate the vacuum more than normal.
Yeah, but, all right, so that's how we got started in the pro shop. I have another one of my little sayings here that's really kind of funny, and if you ever worked in a pro shop, you'll understand. The customer's always right; they're just rarely correct. And what I mean by that is you always want to give the customer what they want. It just doesn't mean that what they're coming in there asking for or telling you to do is the right way to do it. Most of the time, it's not.
Yeah. One of my stories that I've got for a little later in the segment is goes with that really, really well, your philosophy there. And, you know, one of my favorite philosophies / sayings, however you want to put it, is the customer's always right until they tell you how to do your job.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in a specialty field, you're there for a reason. And you know, you always want to make sure the customer feels like they're right. And sometimes they walk in and we know they're not right, but we give them what they want.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're way out in left field and you kind of have to bring them back. But your job is to say, hey, this is why I would recommend this. If you don't like it, okay.
And another one of my sayings to go along with that is that somebody doesn't ask a question, they don't want an answer. So
entirely true.
Yep, you just
do this.
Yep.
Okay.
As long as you get their trust and let them know that you're going to take care of them, if they have something to ask a question about, they'll ask it. But if you start trying to tell them, oh no, you don't want this, you want this, and if you want, you know, you don't go into Best Buy and start looking at movies and go to walk out with one and have somebody stop you, oh no, you don't want that movie, you want to go get this movie. It doesn't really work like that. And when somebody trusts you enough to start asking you recommendations on stuff, then give them some answers.
Oh yeah.
Another absolute fact is that the last person that knows what they're doing in a pro shop is the pro shop guy. You know, everybody's coming in saying, well, my buddy says this, or so-and-so says this, or this guy that was in the audience watching a high school meet says this, and that's what we're going to go with. And it's like, interesting.
Yeah. Yep, I was bowling a tournament and I got a blister and so-and-so told me that every pitch in every hole is wrong. You know, I've been there. There's no way that... and I guess adding to that, most pro shop guys know most of the other pro shop guys in your general area. I mean, there's not so many that you can't keep track, but you probably know 90% of them, and you're working like, well, which person told you that?
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that leads into your next note pretty well, too.
Yeah.
What is that person? What is your buddy that's giving you all this advice? What do they average?
Yeah. What do they average? How often do they do it? And most of the time, it's that guy that bowls on Thursday nights, like the late league, that averages $1.72. And he's the one saying, I don't know, that don't look right to me. And they're like, oh, really? It doesn't?
My best friend Parker Bone told me that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So what do you say? You need another one? I think I need another one.
Yeah,
So.
I'm 100% sure I need another one.
We're going to take a break and we'll be back.
We'll be back.
We'll actually be back in like a couple seconds because I'll cut this.
I'm going to cut this out.
Yeah.